So when looking at some of these events we're seeing recently, particularly with Venezuela, Iran, the protests rising there, can't help but look at all this as like cascading dominoes, how one's lean to another. When you look at the past few days, weeks, months, even really events since October 7th, we're seeing how so many things are, there's this kind of sequence of causation that's causing so many different highly significant events to occur. And I can't help but see what happened in Venezuela as potentially going to be one of these big catalysts of hopefully the downfall of the Iranian regime. Why? Well, because we're already seeing protests rising in ways that are unprecedented in Iran now, and pushback and fight back that is intensifying. Then you have Trump putting out a statement saying if the Iranian police are brutal and crack down on these protesters and shoot at them, then America will get involved militarily, which kind of ties Iran's hands. And then we have America arresting Maduro, an evil authoritarian ruler of a third world, in many ways, society, regime. And Iran will be looking at that as an ally of Iran. Venezuela are an ally of Iran, and they have a bit of a interdependency. They're going to be looking at that and no doubt quaking to see how quickly America can get involved and depose of a leader of an evil regime. Now, that for me is going to, just purely from a morale perspective, have a significant impact on the protesters in a positive sense and the Iranian regime in a negative sense. And it's now being reported by The Times of the UK that Khamenei, as the Persians pronounce, is making plans to flee to Moscow if the unrest in Iran intensifies. I want to read you this story and also share with you also how the Times of Israel are reporting that the Islamic Republic are in survival mode right now, according to Iranian officials. I want to share all of this with you. Quickly, by the way, before I continue, for those of you who haven't, please do click the subscribe button below in the YouTube, just under the YouTube video. It really helps us to grow, allows you to stay in touch with all the videos we're putting out, but it actually helps us to grow and reach even more people just by you subscribing. So please do do that. Now, the Times are reporting that Khamenei has a backup plan to flee the country should his security forces fail to suppress protests or desert. This, by the way, is what Assad did. Bashar al-Assad, the evil leader of the Syrian government. And it's remarkable, by the way, that we're seeing all these major events taking place, these major evil authoritarian leaders being deposed. Khamenei, 86, plans to escape to Tehran with a close circle of up to 20 aides and family should he see that the army and security called on to quell the unrest are deserting, defecting, or failing to follow orders. By the way, defection becomes a lot likelier when the currency collapses and when you have inflation, because it's like, well, you're paying the soldiers, but what does it mean? And apparently the family of Khamenei are saying that, that would be the plan because there's no other place for him to go. And Khamenei also, quote, admires Putin, while the Iranian culture is more similar to the Russian culture. This is according to Beni Sabti, who served for decades as Israeli intelligence after fleeing the regime 8 years after the Islamic Revolution. The getaway plan is based on the escape of his ally, the fallen Syrian leader Bashar al-Assad, who fled Damascus aboard a plane to Moscow to join his family before opposition forces stormed the capital in December 2024. They plotted an exit route out of Tehran should they feel the need to escape, which includes gathering assets, properties abroad, and cash to facilitate their safe passage. Khamenei is known to hold a major network of assets, some under one of the most powerful organizations in Iran, Setad, a part of a system of semi-state charitable foundations known for financial obfuscation. Estimates put the holdings at $95 billion, according to a Reuters investigation in 2013. Which includes properties and companies all held and controlled by Khamenei. Many of his closest aides, including the Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, warned President Trump to stay out of Tehran's affairs. But they have family members already living abroad, including in the US, Canada, and Dubai. Nationwide protests triggered by economic hardship have gripped cities across Iran, including in the holy city of Qum over the last week, protesters accused anti-riot forces of using violent means, including live fire, tear gas, and water cannons to suppress the demonstrations. The escape plan will be activated should Khamenei feel his security forces are not following orders. Desertion and defection are not easily undertaken, with Khamenei protecting loyalists, controlling key appointments and their safety, according to a psychological profile of the leader done by a Western intelligence agency and seen by the Times. But the same assessment said Khamenei was weaker both mentally and physically since last year's 12-day war with Israel. He has barely been seen in public, and notably had not been seen or heard from during the last several days of protests. For the duration of the war, Khamenei holed up in a bunker, avoiding the fate of several other high-level IRGC officials and feeding his obsession with survival. The assessment calls him a paranoid leader, a trait that shaped his plan to leave Iran should his forces desert him. On the one hand, he's very ideologically motivated, but on the other, he is pragmatic in what he sees. He sees tactical compromise for a longer-term, greater cause. He's a long-term thinker. Khamenei was born in Mashhad. Now it goes into all the story of how Khamenei was born, and we don't have to go there then. But one of the points that I want to make, which I see as highly significant, is as the article finishes, it says, after the war, the war with Israel, it's led Iranians to question the investment that Iran has in external forces instead of its own people. They've been left with record inflation, deteriorating living conditions, and one chant heard on the streets of Iran sounded out: "No to Gaza, no to Lebanon. I'd give my life for Iran only." How telling indeed. And, as I mentioned before, Times of Israel reporting that senior officials in Iran have acknowledged that the country have been thrust into survival mode. And this is also being reported by the New York Times. At least 16 people have been killed during a week of unrest in Iran, right groups said on Sunday, as protests spread across the country. The protests are getting bigger and bigger, and Trump said what he said about if Iran killed peaceful protesters, then America would get militarily involved. But amid the protests, officials have acknowledged the Islamic Republic has now been thrust into survival mode. According to an intelligence report shared with the Times, as mentioned before, Khamenei is planning a potential escape. And essentially, many of the leaders are in a sense of panic. We saw a bit of this in the 12-day war, where Israel and America really crushed and totally scaled back Iran's nuclear capabilities. And now combine that with a people that feel utterly at rock bottom in terms of their society. And, one of the things that held Iran together, probably, it was the morale sense of ideological mission, that we are on a mission to destroy the evil Western Zionist forces, all of that. But once Israel and America take that out, it becomes much more challenging to have that narrative. This is why we saw an increase in anti-Semitism and Gazans celebrating the Arab world feeling very, showing all that kind of bravado after October 7th, the Muslim world, rather, I should say. But that's because it kind of Hamas's success in some ways kind of validated for them their sense of how history will unfold. That, yes, Islam and, is going to take over the region of the world. Israel will fall. And so they felt a sense of morale strength. But now, when Israel they had a moment of glory, it's sickening to use those words because what they did was utterly evil and depraved and barbaric. But now that Israel and America pushing back, winning, morale becomes a lot harder to sustain because your narrative of how history unfolds becomes a lot harder to deliver. So for those of you who might not be so familiar, it is worth understanding the theological beliefs, quite remarkable and crazy actually, of the Islamic Republic of Iran and much of the Islamist world, and to understand their doctrine, what it is that motivates them to hate on the Jews, on Israel, on the West so much, what it is that drives the regime, the theology, because they have this whole sense of end times and the Mahdi, this redeemer that will come, and what it is that they're meant to do and why they are so determined to do what they're doing. We actually created a documentary about this on JTV Plus, our new streaming platform. It's called Iran's Holy War, uncovering the theology behind the regime. I'll show you a trailer for it, and if you want to watch the full thing, just click the link below in the video description. This one is fascinating and it really helps you make sense of what we're seeing. The Islamic Republic of Iran. For over 4 decades, its leaders have stood defiantly, their voices thundering through Tehran's streets, chanting death to Israel and waging a relentless war on the West. But what fuels this fierce, unyielding hatred? Is it politics? A grab for regional power? Or something even more profound? A theology that casts Israel and the West as cosmic enemies in a divine battle for the end of days. In this JTV Plus documentary, we embark on a journey to unravel the apocalyptic beliefs at the core of Iran's revolution. We'll uncover the sacred Shia doctrines that prophesy a world reborn through chaos, where a hidden redeemer, the Mahdi, will rise to vanquish evil, with Israel and America as the ultimate foes. We'll dive deep into the mystical visions of a global Islamic order, where martyrdom and jihad pave the path to divine victory. We'll explore how these ancient beliefs shape Iran's every move, from its fiery rhetoric to its deadly proxy wars. From the revolutionary sermons of Ayatollah Khamenei, who ignited a nation, to the shadow wars of spies, cyber attacks, and missiles that have pushed the region to the brink. We'll trace the arc of a regime bent on reshaping history, and we'll reveal the climactic moment when Israel struck back with Operation Rising Lion. A daring, high-stakes operation that shook the world and redefined the conflict. This is not just a story of a nation, but of a creed that seeks to rewrite the future, a conflict that threatens to engulf us all. Join us as we expose the hidden truths behind what Iran sees as its sacred mission, its unrelenting rage, and the battle for our world's destiny. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.